Same crime, but different sentences. Who gets it worse and by how much? Men are good, as are you. Have you ever heard of sentencing disparity? I'll bet you have. I'll bet you've heard all about it. The media tells you all about the sentencing disparity between whites and blacks. And that is, blacks tend to get longer sentences for the same crime by about, I think it's 10%, sometimes a little bit more, 10 to 15%, something like that. I bet the one you haven't heard about is the male to female disparity. And that's been known to be about, I think they've thought it was 20% before. It was twice the racial disparity. But Professor Sonia Starr has entered and brought us some research now that says, no, it's not 20%, it's 63% more. Men get 63% longer sentences than women for the same crime. Now, why haven't we heard all kinds of noise about that? What can we do about this terrible thing, this disparity in sentencing for men versus women? Media's silent about it. You don't hear a daggone thing, do you? No, you don't. Another thing Sonia Starr found was that the black men get 74% longer sentences, and white men get 51% longer sentences. So the disparity is still there. The black men have it the worst, but it's 74 to 51. So it's like, men basically have it worse than women in general, and you don't hear a thing about that. Isn't that strange? I wrote to this researcher and thanked her for what she had done, and I asked her, I said, what kind of reception have you gotten to this research? Because I kind of wondered, what. She's putting out research that shows that men are disadvantaged and, in fact, discriminated against. And I was curious what kind of response she'd gotten from other researchers, and she didn't get back to me. I think that's odd, because usually researchers will get back to you and they'll say one thing or the other, and they'll, whatever. But she didn't get back to me. And I looked at the research she's done afterwards, and most of it was on racial stuff again. So it's like she found this one study where men were 63% more likely to have longer sentences, and then all of a sudden she doesn't study that anymore. She just went to the racial stuff again. Interesting, eh? But Starr's research is fascinating stuff. She talks about the funnel. She says that, if you only look at the sentencing, the judge sentenced things at the very end, you don't get the whole picture. She said, because you got to start from the beginning. You got to start from the arrest, and then what they're charged with, and then what they are, the plea bargaining kind of stuff, and then the sentencing. She said, when you look at all of that together, you come up with this 63% figure. If you don't look at that, you come up with like 20 or whatever. And she started explaining some of what she found, and it's really fascinating stuff. The question is, first you make the arrest, right? And they studied the arrests that were made, and they looked at all of the details of the arrest. They looked at the police notes. They looked at all kinds of things. So this is not like a fly-by-night sort of research. She really did her homework, and she got down in there into the nitty-gritty and the details of all of these arrests. But first the arrest is made, and then the question becomes, what are you charged with? And what she found was that's the beginning of the funnel. Men are charged more seriously than women at the very beginning. But then you get to the plea bargaining stuff. And the same thing happens again. This funnel, it's like you're just getting funneled down. And at the plea bargaining stage, what happens is it's the prosecutors that have the power. Because they can say, well, I'll charge you with this crime, and then you'll get a different sentence than if I charged you with what I could charge you with, which would be this crime. And so what they found was that at this point, they plea bargain differently with women than they do with men, and indeed, men's sentences get longer and longer until you get to the actual sentencing from the judge, and it all totals together about 63%. Now, I'm sure there's some of you out there that scratching your heads and saying, wait a minute. There's all kinds of factors here, Tom. This is not just a simple thing. And no, it's not. And if you read the research, and I'll link it below, if you read the research, you'll see that this researcher did her homework. And she looked at all kinds of factors. You know, the girlfriend factor. Are women less, is their sentences less because of the girlfriend factor? Well, she was just the girlfriend, of the real criminal, And she looked at it and she said, yes, in small percentage of cases, that may be correct. But in no way does it impact 63%. And then what else was there? It was, the women are just accomplices. And yeah, in a certain percentage, that's correct. But again, it's a small percentage of women who are just accomplices. And then she looked at parental responsibility. Maybe women have less sentence because they are responsible for the children. And yes, again, a couple of percent showed that, yes, that was in fact the case. But all these things, even total together, didn't come close to looking at 63%. The other thing they found was, are you ready for this? Single fathers, or not single fathers, but men who had children who were not married, guess what? Instead of their sentences going down because they had children, they went up. Oh, God. And the men who had children who were married, also the sentences stayed about the same. So men who were single, who had children, were penalized, whereas women who were single who had children, their sentences went down. Are we thinking gynocentrism here? I mean, gynocentrism is every place you look. It runs silent and it runs deep, and this is one of the places where it makes a difference. And because Starr looked at all of these different factors, she looked at all the ways that gynocentrism impacts the length of the sentence you get for the same stinking crime. Among single men, conditional on observables, having children significantly increases sentences, and among married men who presumably generally do live with their children makes no significant difference. Thank you, Professor Starr, for a fascinating study. And I think that's enough for now, eh? Come see me on Red Pill Relationships, where Paul Elam and I are doing a weekly workshop for men learning how to arm themselves really with red pill knowledge and research understanding in order to deal with women in the best way they can. So come on and join us. And in the meantime, men are good, as are you. Like, comment, subscribe, all that stuff. We'll see you.